Now we have Marco Ricchetti. Marco Ricchetti is an economist and consultant and fashion consultant for various companies, and is adjunct professor of the University of Italian Switzerland in Lugano. Marco?
Just waiting 1 second to upload the presentation. Poi direttamente da lì?
Sì, facciamo così, magari se poi dopo ce la manda anche per mail.
Ci sei?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me today. I've been asked to present something, well, totally different from what you have seen before from the other colleagues. The topic was to discuss about the role and importance of communication in sustainability and circular, in the sustainability and circular economy domains. So this is what I will try to tell you. Well, just reminding you, this will be part of my presentation, that as in many cases for sustainability, we are in a changing world very rapidly. There is a set of new regulations, so regulation and directives from the European Community that is under discussion. Some of them are already approved. So in a few years' time, let's say 5 years' time, from now, the landscape for sustainability and circular economy in textiles will be dramatically different from what it used to be. Yesterday we discussed with some of you the topic of the eco-design regulations that will dramatically change things. Today we will see that there are very important changing factors also in the way brands and textile companies will communicate and will tell stories about the sustainability of their products and their organizations. So I would like to, not to limit myself to this topic, but also to address another, from my point of view, very important point, which is the misrepresentation of the concept of sustainability within the fashion or textile and fashion industry. This is why I will talk about two things. First, the existence of zombie data. I will explain what zombie data are, what I mean for zombie data, and talking a bit about greenwashing. Let me start with the zombies, because, you know, it's a bit more catching. Well, what about zombie data? And I apologize if I will tell something bad for some of you that presented this data as real and actual data in your presentations. It is quite common behavior nowadays. But let's see very quickly. What are zombie data? Zombie data are informations that are with us, well, almost at every workshop, seminar, conference, article, even at academic level about sustainability in the fashion business. That says strange numbers that no one knows actually where they come from. That is an incredibly dangerous point because everything looks either bleak or super shiny, and let's say keep away any specification, any detail, any difference about the different sectors, products, etc. Well, what is interesting is that in the last few years, some of these zombie data are being debunked by journalists, for example. The first one I will show you in a moment. How many of you is convinced or has ever said that fashion is the second most polluting sector in the world. How many of you? Well, not true. There is no source for it. You're not alone. I will show you something very quickly. The real fact for this statement is that in the 90s, a British designer talking at a designers meeting wanted to say something strong about fashion. And he said, well, it's realistic. You can believe it. And so more or less she invented this statistic. Let's call it statistics, okay? Well, there is an interesting article of a journalist of the New York Times that goes back to all the, it follows all the citations and the story of this statement, just to understand where it comes from. And this was the origin. Sometimes this data has been cancelled from the internet, for example. But then most of the articles, reports still are there. So everyone is convinced that this information comes from a reliable source. So this is what we mean for zombie data. They are not existing anymore, or they never existed actually, but they are still alive. They are among us. Let me make a couple of examples. Well, the fashion industry is the second most polluting industry in the world. Well, you find a number of references, and you see, this is not, the references are to important or reliable sources. So those of you that mentioned this data are justified for the moment. But please, from now on, forget this number, okay? And by the way, sometimes I'm consulting companies, and the CEO of the company, the first time that goes to a public speech, I don't know why, the first things he says, the fashion industry is the second. I told you, it's not true, but it's too strong. Or nearly 20% of global wastewater is produced by the fashion industry. Again, this comes from an old report about cotton dyeing in Pakistan. It was not about the world. It was not about textiles. And you see, it is referenced by the UN, news.un.org, from the World Bank, and also from Ecotextile, which is the most known magazine about sustainability in textiles. The fashion industry is responsible for 10% of annual global CO2 emissions. No source about these numbers that sometimes translate. Do you know that textile industry is responsible for more emission than the full flights that every year take place in the world? Okay? We need to start thinking of information in sustainability, and especially in the fashion business, when everyone can say more or less what they want without any check by anyone. We need to start to think seriously at the data we present. Please note, I'm not saying that the textile supply chain is not polluting. Yes, it is. We have a lot of things to do to solve or to overcome these problems, but we need real data. Otherwise, policy decisions and strategies are influenced by wrong information. It's okay for that? You got the point? Please promise that you never say these things anymore. Well, but let me move to something more critical, I think, which is about greenwashing. Well, greenwashing is an old term that was coined by an activist in 1986. How many of you have spending a night in a hotel has found the nice piece of paper saying, help the environment, don't, well, this was exactly why Mr. Westervelt has coined the greenwashing term. It was making an article on this attitude of hotels to save on laundries, putting the blame and the cost on you. That's a good old point. Well, so the meaning is misleading someone, usually, no, not in this statement, but usually is meant misleading the consumer. Nowadays, we have an interesting new point because of the development and the new importance of sustainability for the business, that is misleading the investors. There are nowadays many funds that invest in so-called green assets, okay? Well, so for many companies, including very big companies, to attract new investors is a critical point. So sometimes they don't want to fool you as a consumer, as someone that wants to buy the product. They want just to get more money from the investors. So they make these statements, these false or, let's say, unclear claims to convince investment funds to give them money. Let me just tell you that greenwashing is a very subtle and, in some cases, sophisticated topic. Look at this statement, for example, that indeed, by the way, we as a consultant, we find quite often when we evaluate products, the sustainability of product, we receive samples with the description, and this was one of the very common in the button industry. So this is why I have to take these buttons as sustainable, because they are natural. They are made by natural wood. This is totally unrelated to the concept of are you cutting historical trees for making buttons or whatever? So this is a quite interesting point. If you try to support your claim about sustainability only with the statement of it's natural, you are greenwashing. So it's not just, I would say, saying in a deliberate way false things. This can also be related to corporate ignorance. Corporation sometimes doesn't know what exactly sustainability means. They want to be part of the game because, you know, the sustainability game today, let's say, is profitable, but they don't know. And this is why we hope that our business will be growing, because corporations need to know things. Well, trying to making a list of ways communication becomes greenwashing is a good old exercise. There are a number of lists of the so-called sins of greenwashing. I just put some of them, a limited selection. There are more sophisticated. Let me just go very quickly to 6 of them. Lack of evidence. You say something, not providing convincing evidence or independent evidence, because, you know, independent information, a third-party certification, for example, can support your statement. And if you don't do that, well, you are making things a bit, you know, fuzzy and confusing. It can also be a self-declaration. There is nothing bad with self-declarations, but you must support. It costs less, for example, to the companies, but you have to follow specific ways of telling stories. There is an ISO for that, that defines how you can make self-declarations, and you need supporting evidence. Or you can have evidence, or you can just, instead of saying clear things, you can just say something a bit confused. how many times you found environmentally friendly on some, let's say, packaging. It's quite common. Well, this is clearly greenwashing. Or how many times you find green product. Doesn't mean nothing. You should specify why it's green, because there are no hazardous chemicals, because the raw material, the hemp, consumes lower amount of water. Well, you have to make clear statements. Then third one is emphasizing the lesser evil. So you trumpet, you advertise one characteristic, forgetting that there are other characteristics of your products that have a very high impact. You see an example over there. Maybe more common is, I remember a label on the cigarettes that was organic tobacco. That makes you safe. Okay, well, the next is, another point is emphasizing characteristics that are mandatory. This fabric is not dyed with azo dyes. Azo dyes, well, most of the azo dyes are prohibited in Europe. So this is not sustainability. This is just, I never killed anyone in my life. This makes me a good guy? I don't think so. This is just what I have to do by law. Let's go ahead. Last two. Well, this is super simple. No need to give you explanation. Sometimes you find labels that looks like they are, or statements that looks like they are certified, or that have reputations. I remember a bottle of oil with the statement, "I promise this is organic. This is my promise." Well, that's great, but it's not definitely a label that has any linkage with whatever verification analysis or so. Or you can just very simply say the false, no need to explain this factor here. Well, all this has negative impacts on the business. Oops, sorry. Well, first point is as a negative impact on the capacity of the consumers or the investors to take the right the decision. It is unfair competition. So there are many reasons why, not only ethical reasons, but business reasons to fight greenwashing. By the way, you find here another example, because yesterday someone mentioned leather. I don't remember in what situation. When you find vegan leather, what does it mean? This is not leather. And by the way, here in Italy is prohibited by law. You cannot even say fake leather. You have to say what is actually is. So is polyurethane with some sort of coating. Okay, but all these reasons, let's say, make a case for regulation. Apparently, the market has not been able to regulate, to self-regulate on these statements, on the greenwashing. Indeed, there are, in many countries, codes of self-regulations by the advertising agencies. There is one that is the general reference in the UK, for example. But there is, apparently, without a law, the market continues to foster greenwashing. So there is a case for a regulation. We need a regulation in a way. By the way, the European Commission made a study before starting the process of writing down a regulation. They went in, I don't remember, 500 or so websites of companies, not only in textiles, generally speaking, and they made an assessment of the so-called green claims or green statements. And you see what are the results. Overall, I just mentioned one data. Almost half of the statements could be considered greenwashing, according either to the competition law in general or by the type of definition I've been showing you before of greenwashing. So, this was more or less an introduction, a bit long. What all these issues led us to? Well, to regulations. So we are, even in the communication domain, we are moving from a market where self-regulation of many topics around in terms of about sustainability, including communication, were made by the markets, to a new framework where the behavior of companies will be dictated by the law, in this case, by European law. Well, European and member states law, because some of them are, in this case, are directives, so they need to be approved and incorporated and maybe changed a bit by national parliaments. For the regulations, for example, as for the eco-design, the decision is taken at Brussels and not at the national level. Well, so last month, 17 January, the European Parliament adopted a first directive, which is indeed, next one, which is indeed an amendment of the general law of fair behavior on the market, okay, that exists since 2000, well, the last iteration was 2005. Now, with this new directive, the fair behavior is defined specifically for greenwashing. Generally speaking, before the law was about the general fair competition. You cannot say that, I don't know, the bottle of water is 1 liter if it is only 80 centiliter, okay? Now we have a set of rules that are specific to the greenwashing. This directive, which has been, as I said, I want to stress it, already passed by the European Parliament. Now, I don't know if you are familiar with the processes of legislation in Europe, but now it needs to be approved by the Council, so by the member state, the Council of Member States. This directive includes the following topics. So it provides regulations from a pretty large number of topics, and some of them are quite new to the table. I mean, you need to have clear evidence or information about the durability of goods. That's a totally new topic in this field. Reparability. Well, I don't want to enter all of them because it will take too much time, but you see it's a quite comprehensive and encompassing set of rules. Then we have a second, sorry, let me to be clear, this so-called in the jargon, the greenwashing directive, which is about fair competition. Okay, how companies have to behave to guarantee fair competition when talking about sustainability. But then we need another more specific piece of law, which is the expected directive on green claims. What does it mean? It means that the next step, the next directive, which is expected to be passed by the European Parliament in June this year, is about what is the meaning of a good claim about sustainability. So it's more specific, more detailed, more parametric in a way. So these two directives together, one already passed and the other expected to be passed before the European elections, so before the government can change their mind about the role of sustainability, as the current chairman of the Commission has declared last week. In this case, what is the directive deals with what is a good green claim or sustainability claim? Well, some of the topics are trivial, must be based on scientific analysis, okay? You cannot say just stupid things. Then there are other that should be scrutinized very in detail. A claim must demonstrate the relevance along all the life cycle of the product. What does it mean? It means adopting LCA or PEF, product environmental footprint methodology that is being set by the European Union 10 years ago. If so, something that already mentioned yesterday, sorry for those that were attending. I assume all of you know how complicated and long is to carry out a good LCA, and the PEF is based on LCA, right? Is it doable in the context of fashion when the shelf life of a product can be at maximum 1 season? You don't even have the time to implement the LCA in many cases. Okay, so it can be doable for maybe some product that it's very standard, a carryover that stand on the market for many years. Maybe a white T-shirt, but even if it is a white T-shirt, it's quite common to shift the suppliers. So this year I make the white T-shirt for European market in Morocco. Maybe next year I move to Pakistani suppliers. Is it the LCA I made on the fabric for the T-shirt made in Morocco the same than the one made in Pakistan, where, for example, the raw material is different, the technique is different, etc. I mean, this is a quite interesting point. So this is my last slide. Well, the world is changing, definitely. But what will be the impact? Will be a negative impact? This will put the industry in troubles, or it is an opportunity? Well, it's easy to say it's a mix of that. I already mentioned a lot of the opportunities, but what about the concerns the industry has about the passing of this directive? Is doable? What about SMEs are able to implement all the information? Are there the information along the supply chain? How can I know if the yarn I used has specific characteristics in terms of sustainability? If I am just a retailer, for example, a brand. So it is, in general, it's doable for sure, but it is doable for the textile and fashion industry. Is it possible that it is actually already happening, by the way, even with big brands, that the strategy to respond to this new regulation is, well, let's say nothing about sustainability, because I don't want to be caught in problems with not being compliant with the law. If you, as a brand, if you don't have the opportunity to make these statements, your marketing doesn't want you to produce products that are sustainable. So this can be a backslash on the development of sustainability. And last but not least, this is a European regulation that holds for European companies in this case. What about when you are selling on the American market or the Chinese market? What American companies will say about their products when selling on American market, and the same. So, I mean, this is a quite interesting and impacting news system that will be with us in not more than a couple of years. So companies need to be prepared to a world that is changing very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ricchetti. Now a short, very short breakdown. I pray you to go on, to come back on time, because we are very late.